We live in a turbulent times. The world seems to become more and more chaotic and unstable. Wars, plagues, fires, and floods ravage the globe. Fascist and aggressive governments are rising as the opposition seems to be unable to challenge their madness. Tyrants and bullies are running the world. World desperately needs a hero. Someone to drive the darkness and restore the order to the world. But I'm not that guy. I'm just a goofy guy who likes to dress up in historical outfits and loves folklore and fantasy. But I believe it is every individual's responsibility to do whatever they can to help others and bring a brighter world, even if it's for one person and for a fleeting moment. So that's what I try to do. Ho ho, Harry Heda, Harry ho. Hello friends, welcome back to the Bordeaux Show. It is I, Tolis Papa, Georgian Father Christmas. Georgian Father Christmas, wishing you a happy, beautiful New Year's. Today is the old Caesarian calendar New Year's, and Georgia is an ancient country and we still celebrate both old style of New Year's and the New Year's as well. This is This used to be old Russian imperial administrative center, castle where a representative of the Tsar used to rule over Georgia, but after Soviet Union it became home of the pioneers. Pioneers used to be Soviet youth center where the people learned about arts, about history, about culture, of course with a little bit of a Soviet propaganda, but after Soviet collapse it continued to be home for the youth, home for the artists, home for the scientists, home for the children to learn about the world and the Georgian culture. And this is where I grew up. My grandmother used to teach here and used to take me all the time, and I basically was raised in this building. Unfortunately, currently it's under construction, but I still wanted to share because this is where I met Tolis Papa for the first time. Tolis Papa, of course, is a Georgian Father Christmas, and every year during the winter and the Christmas, Tolis Papa used to come. The Georgian actor used to pretend to be Tolis Papa and cheer the youth, and one of the youths of course was me, and I was inspired to continue this tradition. My grandfather also used to play, and this is his nabadi, and during these difficult times, during protests and during repressions, I try to bring Georgian culture and Georgian identity to the forefront and not let the government that is using Georgian traditions and Georgian way of life as a way to make old people scared of new ideas and to use as a tool of repression. The current government is pretending that they are protecting Georgian culture and Georgian identity while actually destroying Georgian future and aspirations to Europe, because as I've said it many times before, we are one of the oldest parts of European identity and we need to return to it. This is what I try to do during this protest. I try to bring cheer and bring joy and bring some silly fun to the people and not let them feel as depressed as the situation makes them feel. Unfortunately, it's really difficult times. There are many people jailed, many people are beaten in the streets, oppressed, repressed, and that's why I try to bring and keep the cheer that I learned from this establishment and continue the traditional way of life. Today, unfortunately, we are in a difficult spot. I would like to share more and more about Georgian culture. For example, this is Chichilaki, ancient symbol of the sun, and it was Georgian. Currently it is used as Georgian Christmas tree, and it was before Christmas and before Christianity it was a symbol of the sun, and it was made and burned every ritually during the this winter equinox and its rebirth. So I would like to share more and more about Georgian culture, its history and its mythology, but unfortunately we live in very, very difficult times, battle and tyranny and oppression, where government seeks to repress humanity, repress Georgian people in the name of culture, in the name of history, and in the name of art. So that's why I dress up as sometimes as a Georgian knight, sometimes as a Georgian Father Christmas, to show that people who truly care about Georgian history and culture do not stand with them. We fight against tyranny, we fight against oppression, and it will not be a tool to repress and control people. So follow along as I journey into the protests and try to raise the spirits of Georgian protesters and also celebrate all the New Year's with me. All right. I recorded this video during 14th of January and I'm finishing up at the end of the month because I have very hard time finding motivation during these difficult times. The protests have been going on for over 60 days now. Keeping the spirits high is very difficult, but it is the exact reason why I do this. Trying to cheer people up as we are tirelessly standing in defiance of the regime that has been in power for more than 12 years now. It's a battle of resilience. Who will give up first? So, keeping the morale high is very important. People ask me, why do I do this? Why do I bother myself getting dressed up as a knight and coming here almost every day and doing this like some silly performance? Because I was raised by their literature, by their ideas. This is Ilya Chauchawadze, Nagaki Tsereteli. I've mentioned them before, but they're the founding fathers of Georgian liberalism and modern Georgian ideals, who both of them used a lot of old fairy tales, literature as the basis of renewal and revival of Georgian ideas. During that period, new age of Georgian ideals such as equality that existed in our history, but oppression came to be, where Georgians were a second-class citizens in their own nation and were repressed by nobles who either were placed by other kingdoms and worst, and which is still common to this day, local lords, local nobles and wealthy people who are empowered by our oppressors and our conquerors and giving carte blanche to oppressors. They become the worst of the worst, even harsher and more terrible than the foreign oppressors. And unfortunately, this is the reality that we live in. And me being dressed up as a silly Eastern European knight is my way of fighting these modern corrupt ideas that nihilism, that there is no hope, there is no point in struggling against powerful governments and tyrannies, that your voice as an individual doesn't matter. But as a performer, as an artist, just making a positive change on another person, giving one person a good story, a smile, is enough to bring me and my work and my art meaning. And every time I come out here, just the ability to make someone be hopeful, make someone feel that there is still a chance, there is still a reason to fight. There are still knights who fight for freedom, who fight for justice, who fight for truth, and who fight for ideals that are considered today to be realm of fiction, realm of stories, realm of non-existence, of past. Even people go into the past and say that the knights never existed. Knights only exist in fairy tales. And that's why I try to play a knight, play a character in this world to bring the ideas of fiction, ideas of fairy tales, and ideas of long past history that may never have existed into reality. It might be a fool's errand, but I'm a fool through and through. If ideals such as truth, justice, freedom, and equality are fool's ideals, I'm gonna be a fool nonetheless. So I will continue to struggle as the God's favorite fool. I will fight against every foolish tyranny and foolish oppressors with my playful nature, because it might be hopeless, it might be meaningless, but I will never continue struggling against the wave, against the push of tyranny. Why did I make this armor? This is actually inspired by Eastern European, closer to, you might know this as Bagatir armor. There are similar size of armor in Georgia, and over there's a historical museum where they have leg pieces matching my plate armor. But this is also popular all over Eastern Europeans, people such as, for example, Kievan Rus. And when the war started between Russia invading Ukraine, I actually built this armor in dedication to their struggle. And because I wanted to join, I wanted to help as much as I could, but I didn't have any resources, I didn't have any military training or money to actually help them out. So all I could do is spiritually and artistically support them by making this armor, and I made a few videos supporting their struggle. And unfortunately, their struggle is also our struggle, and what they're going through, we are also a part of this war. Might not be physical war right now, it was in 2008, and it continues in a hybrid form of war, war of information, war of manipulation.
The video I made to show the armor over 2 years ago now is unfortunately unavailable in most places because I used a clip from 1956 Soviet film Ilya Muromets to illustrate the similarities between modern invasion of Ukraine from the Russian horde to the historic invasion of Kiev by the previous Eastern horde. But the Russians put a copyright claim on it and restricted its reach globally, claiming the clip that mostly is me talking. I tried to appeal it, but the ban remains. This is another form of informational warfare, restricting criticism wherever they can.
So one of the things that unfortunately they use to brainwash and manipulate Georgians to support the regime that is funded by Russia, and unfortunately Russia is also using this, is using the name of Christianity, name of traditions, name of orthodoxy, as somehow Russians, who are the ones brutalizing all the Christian nations, invading every other Christian nation. How can someone claim to be a protector of Christian world where in fact they are the main enemy of the Christian world, invading Ukraine, Moldova, Poland, Baltic states, Balkans, influencing wars over there, and invading Caucasus, Georgia and Armenia, two of the most oldest and most ancient Christian nations, were conquered by Russians in the promise of protecting us, in the promise of defending the Christians of the Middle Eastern or Caucasian world. But in reality, they turned as our oppressors. They wiped our images, wiped our icons, painted them white, and turned us into their subservient Russian church, while in reality Georgian and Armenian churches were far more ancient and far more powerful spiritually and historically. But even to this day, there are many great Christians and many great priests and religious folk. I grew up in the church, I grew up coming here, and many other temples and churches. There are great Christians and great Christian monks, priests, but even there, the KGB and the spy influence exists, unfortunately, there as well. This is not just our struggle. Every part of the world, unfortunately, religion is being attacked, not just from the outside, from the inside. And unfortunately, criticism of religion is considered heresy and insult. Last year, when the protest began, I came here asking the Saint George for protection, and I once again want to ask Saint George to protect us, fight against evil and tyranny. Christianity in its nature is a peaceful religion that demands love even towards your enemies, love and compassion. But sometimes love and compassion is not enough. Sometimes you need to arm yourself and fight against tyranny. But that should always be the last resort. Currently, we are struggling with peace, with love, with understanding, fighting against our oppressors, against armies of police and criminals who are brutalizing our people. But we are still keeping to the ideals of peace and love and forgiveness. So, hopefully, the ideas of peace and love will win. But in that struggle, we still need strength. And I pray to Saint George, because unfortunately some forms of evil cannot be reasoned with. Some forms of evil cannot be forgiven and defeated by love. Sometimes a saber must be used to cut them out. The greatest tragedy is always when Georgians fight against Georgians, but there are also other forces, demonic forces, Russian forces, who are infiltrated and influencing people. So God help us, so it never comes to violence and never comes to tyranny. But as we can see in Ukraine, they have to use weapons, they have to use bombs, they have to use blades to fight against the oppressors. Someone who claims to be their brothers, like Russians claim to be brothers of Ukrainians, they come and cut their throats, bomb their children and kill their women and brutalize everyone. While we Georgians call each other's brothers, but we can poison them, use toxic gas, use violence, beat them, bludgeon them, and see no problem in it. But I don't know, this is a real struggle as a Christian to fight against evil that you've been told that you can only defeat through love and prayers. But again, Saint George, protect us, and in the dire straits we will do what is necessary. And strength to Ukraine, and strength to heroes of Georgia, Ukraine, and Eastern Europeans who truly fight for freedom and actually being true Christians.
When the daily resistance becomes exhausting, I think back to the heroes of old, those that fought against the Russian Empire and its most powerful, when odds were stacked against them and losing the battle was guaranteed. But they sacrificed themselves for their ideals nonetheless. Heroes such as Mikhailashvili.
Hello friends, I'm back to Georgian protests, and today is a special day, 25th of January, which is 100-year anniversary of a great Georgian poet turned renegade turned outlaw, Mikhailashvili. 100 years ago, he was 25 years old when he was assassinated, but beforehand he was a Georgian clergyman in the mountains of Pshavchev-Sureti, famous for his poetry, for his singing, for his artistry. But when Soviets came to occupy Georgia, he became a renegade fighting against Soviet occupation and their attempts to wash away Georgian culture, identity, and religious freedom. He fought against them. He was living in the woods for a very long time, fighting Soviet police and soldiers, and many of them tried to kill him, tried to capture him. None of them could. And the cowards, the evil bastards, they even killed and tortured his mother to get him to come for revenge so they could capture him. But he managed to get away, and years after, when anti-Soviet revolution failed and many Georgian soldiers fled to Europe, he still stayed in the woods fighting against Russians. But unfortunately, his time came to an end this day 100 years ago, when his own comrades, his own friends assassinated him, killed him while he was sleeping. This is the unfortunate history of Georgians, that many brave heroes, poets and artists who have to become renegades and soldiers and warriors. No authority, no army can stop them, but again and again, Georgians are the only ones who can stop and defeat them. And today, we still have to fight occupational force of Georgians who are doing the bidding of Russians and who are trying to oppress us. And the glory to Mikhailashvili, great Georgian warrior poet, and we must continue his struggle to this day. And we must never let Russia capture and wash away our culture and our history. Gaumardjos Sakartvelos, gaumardjos Mikhailashvilis.
Heroes like him is what inspire me to do all I can to better this world. There is a Georgian Saint George legend, where the moon hero White Georgi is captured by evil Kaji and ripped into 363 pieces. But from each piece a new hero Georgi was born, and that's why there are so many Saint George churches in Georgia, each of them a hero on its own. From one hero's death rise many more, inspired by his heroism.
We are back towards the gates of Gog Magog, as I like to call it. I make a lot of videos about history and mythology, talking about Georgian folklore, and I want to tell you a few stories. one from Georgian mythology and one from world mythology that is popular part of Christian, Islamic and Abrahamic faiths of all. First, telling you the Georgian legend that I've been repeating, the foundational legend. I just recently signed a petition of Khevsur warriors, and they have their own folklore and mythology. And according to the Highlands, Georgian Highland mythology, there was a time where ogres, giants, brutal creatures called Devi ruled the earth, where humanity was nothing more than food for these giant ogres, and we lived in perpetual servitude to these oppressors, to this race of giants. The Nephilim would be an appropriate title for them. But God had his retinue of angels, the godson as we will call them, who demanded that God sent them down to earth, from heaven to earth, to fight against these demonic oppressors and vanquish them and send them into the underworld. But God demanded that only when humans chose freedom over safety, chose liberty over comfort, and chose to be humans, not just cattle for these giant ogres to be used as food and slaves and every kind of brutality. Only then he will send his godsons, his heroes, his heavenly warriors to protect us. And that came one day when a family had so much oppression, so much brutality that a man sacrificed his last bull, only hope for his family's survival, to use a bull to plow the fields. But I'll tell a full legend later. There is a lot of brutal scenes about this man sending his wife for the blacksmith David, the giants, to forge him a plow to plow the fields, but they brutalized her, and when she returned, man felt so insulted that he sacrificed his last bull for the god, for Morige, the bringer of order. Morige means order bringer. Finally vanquished his demons, and then he sent his angels to fight against the demonic horde. And now I'd like to tell you another myth, a Christian myth, a Islamic myth, a Jewish myth about, it's not a myth, of course, I'm a Christian, I believe it to be true. I believe a lot of things to be true, especially during these difficult times where more fantastical things seem real and real. And according to this legend, there is a race of beings called Gog and Magog. It's considered to be demons, or a race of people, or a race of demonic people. There are different interpretations from different cultures. But according to the story, these beings, these Gog and Magog, live beyond the wall of the world, live beyond the mountains of Caucasus, and it is responsibility of Caucasians, responsibility of Georgians to keep this demonic horde at bay, so they do not cross into the civilized world. This is of course meant to reflect the steppe barbarians that used to invade Middle East and Western Asia, where the ancient civilizations used to inhabit, such as Abrahamic people that were Jewish and Islamic and Christian beliefs came from, but they actually represent the demonic force of current day Russia. Russia is believed to be the Gog-Magog demon, and it is our responsibility to fight against them. Today, for many of us, the struggle seems more mythical than anything else. The struggle seems to be daily, not just for Georgians. All of the world seems to be struggling against wildfires, wars, oppression, battles against evil, and it seems like it is impossible to win against the struggle. It is impossible to fight against AI, fight against super billionaires, fight against tyrannical dictators and warmongers. Truly feels apocalyptic, the world that we live in. But everyday struggle, everyday acts of kindness and everyday acts of heroism is the only thing that you can do. It might be foolish to struggle against it, foolish to struggle against this reality, but we must be fools to live in this world. To be sane is to be suicidal, is to be apathetic, is to accept the world that you will die in this world, but I will not accept that. I will continue struggling. I will continue to do anything that I can to bring at least a smile to one person. It's enough of a victory for me. So join in my struggle, in this foolish struggle against reality, against tyranny, and against dominance of oppression. Be a fool, be a silly knight in the world of dark humans. And that's all I can say to you. Aumajos.
Thanks for watching. It's been a very difficult few months, but the fight is not over. I will continue to do my part in this struggle against tyranny and corruption. But I also want to continue with my regular content on this channel. Hopefully I can grow and reach more people. But for that I have to make more content that helps the channel grow. I want to thank all of you for following along, subscribing to my channel, but a special thank you to my Patreon supporters who are the lifeblood of this channel. I don't know what the future holds, but I know I will be doing all I can to bring cheer and whimsy into it. We must do our part to make a wicked world more tolerable, and hopefully a better future lies down the road. Thank you very much, and take care of your loved ones and strangers too.